In the 13th chapter of Kings, there's a story known as the Dueling Prophets. There's a man of God, we're told, from Judah who travels north to the northern kingdom to a town called Bethel, where there had been a second altar built. The true altar, of course, was in the temple in the southern kingdom, and he had been sent by God with a word from God to denounce that altar. And his prophecy is proven to be true. He's proven to be a man of God, and the words are presumably those of God himself. On his way home, a second prophet, a prophet from the northern kingdom, from Bethel, intercepts him on his trip and tells him that he is to come dine with him, that God has told him that Prophet A, the Judahite man, the man from Judah, is to come and eat with him, the man from Bethel. This is problematic because in the instructions the man from Judah had been given, he had been told not to stay. He had been told not to dine, not to eat, not to stay, but to return home immediately after delivering his prophecy. But Prophet B from Bethel says that God has told him this. And so Prophet A from Judah goes with him and eats. As they are eating, a word from God comes to the second prophet from Bethel, condemning the first man for staying, for eating, for disobeying God. It turns out that the words from the second prophet inviting the man, telling the man to come eat, were in fact false. It was not God who had told him that. It was a test. And in believing and trusting Prophet B, Prophet A had disobeyed God. And because of that, we're told that he would not make it home. He would not see his homeland. And in fact, on his way home, he's killed. He doesn't make it. There are ongoing debates about this text and what exactly we can take from it. But one thing we can take for sure is the lesson that when God speaks, we ought to listen. We ought to know that God does not contradict himself, and when he tells us something, that will remain true. Prophet A had been given a word from God, and he ought to have known that when Prophet B came and delivered to him a word, supposedly from God, that contradicted that, it was certainly false. But he did not. And in listening to Prophet B, even though he claimed to be speaking from God, he was judged to be disobedient. So do we, as followers of Jesus, as people of God, do we hold to our texts? Do we take the time to understand what they truly mean, to understand what God is saying, and then do we internalize that and do we stick to it? Or do we find ourselves swaying like reeds in the wind, just following whatever the next person says? There are many people today, and there have been throughout time, who come claiming to speak for God. The question that we must ask ourselves is, are their words in keeping with the eternal truths of God? God has spoken most profoundly through his Son. And so we must bathe ourselves in those words, the teachings of Jesus himself. We must know what they are. We must make them part of us. We must allow the Spirit to guide us in understanding those words. And then as others come and tell us, I've heard a word from God for you, or I have a prophecy or a word of knowledge, or whatever that is, we must test that against what God has already said. So as you go through your days, may you hold fast to the word of the Lord that has been given to you. May you study, may you know, may you seek to understand what it is that God has already said, so that you may interpret and understand and test and know to be true the things that God would say to you today.